Last night, we get an email. They said, actually, I need you to take out the names of the characters that's in the show.
This is exactly why Japan lost the culture war to South Korea. Let me explain. Japan has missed out on millions, if not billions of yen because they refuse to make their music more accessible. J-pop, like most Japanese pop culture, must be consumed the way Japan wants you to consume it. The average Japanese CD goes for around 40 to 50 USD. So if you want to import it, you're looking at potentially 70 USD. But if you live in a country like Mexico or Brazil, then you're going to get screwed over by the currency conversion. Not only is the music hard to access, people literally cannot afford to become J-pop fans. What ends up happening is when kids are in that weeb phase, 11 to 12 years old, they just got into anime, they're looking to get into J-pop, and they go on streaming services and they can't find any J-pop artists. Now, people may say that's not that much money, but when your main demographic are children or teenagers, then yeah, $70 is a lot, especially if we're talking about one album. It's just not realistic to expect that demographic to be able to afford that much ever so often. So what do those kids do? They just get into K-pop because that is accessible and that industry was built with the intention and expectation that it would become a global phenomenon. And it did. If one of the biggest artists in the world with a genuine love and adoration for your culture comes to you to collaborate, do you make them jump through hoops or do you jump through hoops for them? I say that because South Korea wasted no time getting Megan on a track with BTS, and this was in 2021 at the height of the pandemic. Executives were on Zoom making shit shake. Flights were being booked. COVID tests were being bought and bought and bought. This happened in August of 2021. Nothing was going to stop this collaboration from happening because the powers that be wanted it to happen. If Megan wanted to collaborate with a South Korean group or intellectual property on this album, they would have made a reality TV show where every K-pop group in the nation competed for a chance to rap on the remix album. And it would be titled, Show Me the Hottie. Arasayo? She would have been a guest of honor at the Mama Awards, and every CD would have been bundled with a hottie light stick, poster, and photo cards. This is all possible because South Korea does not suffer from a Japan-only mindset, which is success in Japan is measured on whether or not native Japanese people like it. International success is nice, but it is not the bar. However, Japan consistently gets in their own way because when they have cultural exports, they do not want to push said cultural exports because they don't want to leave said cultural exports in the hands of non-Japanese people. And that pretty much goes for just about everything in Japan. They do not like to relinquish any power whatsoever over their own culture. And for good reason. But at a certain point, they have to get out of their own way if they want to make actual money. Yen? Down. Birth rate? Down. They could be up, but they're stuck on stupid ass laws from the 1980s and prior that nobody is in a position to change or wants to change because in Japan, if you've done one thing for 30 years, then you just keep on doing it and nobody questions why. And that's their prerogative. The same way it's the consumer's prerogative to look at the cultural offerings being made and say, you know what? I'm gonna go with South Korea because I can afford this hobby, I can access this hobby, I can actually see these artists in my home country. It's not even an argument, it's just easier. Now, I have every belief that Megan is going to get in there and kill the track as she always does, but it is so unfortunate that the powers that be are literally forcing her to make less than 24-hour adjustments to something that honestly would have just boosted sales of the intellectual property. All it would have done was make headline after headline. It's free money, and they cannot see that. Or they might not even care, because the only opinions they value are those of fellow Japanese people. But, I mean, their economy cares, so. And it's so ironic, because the marketing of K-pop as an industry is so phenomenal. For decades, South Korean artists have been making albums and songs in Japanese for the Japanese market. They get their entire mini albums. Japan doesn't do that. They don't do Korean albums for Koreans on a regular basis. They're just in a completely different stratosphere as far as their industries are. And it's ironic because now J-pop idols want to be K-pop idols. But for perfectly good reasons. They have a choice. Do I want to be a J-pop idol and potentially have 24 people outside of Japan know who I am? Maybe more if my song gets picked up for an anime opening and the anime goes on to be like the next Naruto. Or do I want to be a K-pop idol and potentially be the next 2NE1? Potentially be the next Blackpink? Mashide. If Japan was less stingy with intellectual property and copied everything black people have done since the 90s, their economy could look a lot better right now. But it doesn't. And they probably just don't care, because the only opinions that matter to them are of their fellow countrymen. In conclusion, South Korea, Netflix. Japan, not even Blockbuster. Hollywood Video.